Welcome to Skills of the Future, a podcast by Perennial Talent. In this mini-series, we explore the skills and competencies needed to face the new realities of work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Skills of the Future, and our mini-series on HR Game Changers, skills and competencies needed to face the new realities of work. My name is Andrea Butler, and I'm a principal consultant at Perennial Talent. I'm joined today by my guest, Kristi Conlon, who has 25 years of experience in the learning and development space, specifically in vocational education, learning curriculum design, academic publishing, as well as corporate training in semiconductors and more recently, construction. She was honored as one of the top 50 leaders in L&D in 2019, and you might have seen her speak at one of the industry events, including TLDC and the CLO Exchange. If not, look for her at future events when those are a thing again. Her growth mindset fuels her passion for building people and organizational capabilities, ensuring that there is a measurable business impact. She really does believe in empowering employees, managers, and really people at all levels by making sure that they have on-the-job development experiences that they'll need, that they're defined, that they're accessible, so that all folks can grow as the business continues to evolve. Welcome, Kristi.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So let's start off with something hopefully fun that we've been asking our guests. What is something that you have read or watched recently that you'd recommend?
I've been streaming. I just finished The Good Place with Kristen Bell, and it was great. I mean, it's just a lot of fun, certainly family friendly, and at the ending was really great. But I enjoyed the characters. If you haven't, have you seen it?
I have seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, Janet is definitely my favorite character. Did you have a favorite?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yep.
Favorite Janet?
Disco Janet.
Disco Janet. I kind of like the evil one just because she's always with her cell phone and smacking the gum and
yeah, it's like I said, I like it because it's family friendly and generational. I mean, it crosses all generations.
Mm-hmm. Very poignant and funny. Yeah. What's not to like? Ted Danson. There you go. All right. Well, now that we've got the fun questions out of the way, let's talk a little bit more about the competency-focused questions. So the world of work has changed. So in your view, how would you say it has changed? And what do you think the impact has been, certainly for more remote work?
Yeah, I mean, the paradox is that the working conditions are evolving. We're more productive, but we're also more exhausted. We have the freedom of working from home, but we're scheduled back to back in Zoom. And so I think that's interesting. And the impact really depends on the company's culture. In less supportive cultures, employees might not ask for the help that they need. In more supportive cultures, you see that leaders are really stepping up and showing empathy, providing the resources and flexible work plans. I've got some employees with kids that just started back to school. So really a lot of empathy for that situation, trying to work while you're also, managing school at home for your kids. I'm seeing one of the impacts is a real focus on wellness because we're trying to take care of people. And my company, DPR Construction, actually offers things like Zen breaks, employee assistance programs. But in talking with peers at other companies, I'm learning that not every company does that, right? And it's really going to threaten the engagement of the employees when conditions turn around. And I know that, we invest a lot in our people and our talent. And so I think that we're going to see people take action if they're not engaged and if they don't feel taken care of when things evolve to the next level, whatever that looks like.
Exactly. And that leads to a good segue. So thinking now of the talent life cycle, whether it's hiring or learning and development or career pathing, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges there right now that you've seen?
Well, you mentioned the whole talent cycle, and I'm actually really happy to see a shift towards the talent cycle. 15 years ago, we were talking about how we should really integrate them, and the systems and platforms are definitely helping to integrate those talent functions, but we can't rely on the tools either. The answer is not in the software. I think it always comes down to the competencies that are in the center of the talent wheel. So the competencies define the criteria for hiring, onboarding, development, certainly the training, comp and ben, and even succession planning and rewards. So it's all based on performance to competencies as well as goals. So I'm seeing that, this work is becoming more complex because of the work environment conditions and the way roles are shifting. Companies that are going to do really well know what the baseline skills are for evolving.
Right.
But if you don't have those baseline competencies, you don't know what you're tweaking as the job roles change. And so perhaps we're going to be finding ourselves having to really not just tweak job descriptions and competencies, but really wholesale go back and redefine a lot of them due to, our current environment.
So talking about that framework a little bit, could you expand a little bit more on really what that benchmark looks like in your mind?
Well, it depends on the industry. I think defining the core skills, some companies call them the values.
Right.
Right. I define competencies as knowledge and skills, not personal attributes or traits.
Right.
So there is a place for how traits show up, but getting what's core to the job family or the price of admission, those sort of common ones. And then where I think we really see impact is at the role level in terms of roles and even how those roles show up in different markets. When I was leading a competency effort for a sales and marketing organization, we got really specific into enterprise sales, digital sales, sales in specific vertical markets and the competencies needed for that vertical market. That's where I'm seeing the impact. So it's
perfect.
Really exciting to get that prescriptive.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize too, not everybody appreciates prescriptive, that they still, don't put me in a box and tell me exactly what the skills are that I need. It is a balance. I think they're a guide. It's not a box. It's just a guide for development.
So in terms of competencies right now, are you finding that there are any ones that are specifically more important right now?
Well, I suppose it depends on the industry, but there is a strong theme. And I'll give you an example. My daughter works in the music business, in the music industry. And of course, that's been majorly disrupted. There's no live tour marketing happening right now. Concerts are kind of on hold, and sports, right? And all this disruption, whether it's in retail or schools, it's evolving to a digital platform. So she's fortunate that there are digital music platforms and digital music jobs. But imagine if there weren't, right? Same thing for retail. We had the capabilities to do online shopping, but then with COVID and the business conditions, it's becoming more and more prevalent. So the competency that I'm seeing emerging for pretty much every industry is around the digital era, the competencies like digital citizenship, digital literacy, digital collaboration, using the technologies, and how to build relationships digitally. It's kind of evolving to that, how do we personalize through AI? So we had all of these things before. I just think that the conditions are really accelerating the need for some of these digital skills.
And what about more of the, lack of a better term, softer skills? Are there any ones or competencies that you think are particularly important?
Yeah, I definitely alluded to them earlier around, empathy, and of course, emotional intelligence, self-awareness and self-care, definitely emerging for wellness, because we're recognizing that when people are cared for, they can give their best. And so those are some of the softer skills for employees as well as managers and leaders to be effective in the digital era.
And what do you think are the challenges that organizations are facing right now when it comes to developing these skills?
Probably the initial effort of defining the competencies to the job roles, and having a nice rubric that shows what foundational, intermediate, and advanced looks like, so that for their role they know what a great job looks like. I think everyone wants to know what do I need to do to really be effective and successful in my job and my role. People's work, it's when it's aligned to their passions and strengths, it can be their purpose, right? They find a lot of purpose, and there's a lot of dignity in being able to perform a job well. And that's what the goal is. And the struggle is, imagine if you're doing something and having to Google your job because nobody tells you what's expected, or you get tasks but you don't have any context for it. That causes people a lot of stress. And so I think growing people through defined skills grows the company.
Absolutely, absolutely. What do you think organizations can do right now with respect to the future, to prepare people with the right skills and competencies?
That's a great question. I think they can fine-tune leadership skills to take care of people, but also do the strategic scenario planning. Business strategy, I'm a huge fan of the business canvas and different business models and combining them in unique ways. That work, combined with business acumen and really knowing the competitive landscape, those are ways to get ahead of the change curve and be less reactive in the competencies and capabilities that they need to build.
Right.
If they really are solid on the business strategy and how they're evolving the business, then those competency definitions come. It's where companies aren't as clear on the future and anticipating the challenges, that it becomes a threat, and we're seeing that, right? Sadly, some companies are really struggling to survive and evolve themselves. So, companies that can identify emerging skills are going to win.
Absolutely. I think sometimes we see people focus too much on the past or even the present and not think to the future, because jobs are evolving and you need the skills to get you through that evolution.
Yeah, I probably have the opposite problem. I'm very future oriented, and I probably need to be more present.
Fair.
Right? So it's great to have a team that has all of those perspectives, and you get the diverse, lens of honoring the history and the past, living in the present, but also planning for scenarios. And that's something that another company that I worked for did really well. We had about 5 strategic scenarios, and the leaders would meet and say, okay, we've got blue sky. Our business just tripled. Are we ready? What do we need to do to be ready if that happens? There was gloom and doom. Okay, the bottom just fell out. There's no more X, whatever it is that we need, and our business model's failing. What do we do? So they really did it as a practice and as an exercise, and of that stayed a little bit forward thinking and thought through, gosh, that's going to require all new capabilities for the IT organization or for the people practices, and what kind of skills are they going to need? What do they need to know?
So what do you think are the future threats or pain points if an organization doesn't act to clearly define these skills or competencies needed for success?
Well, I'm usually a glass half full kind of girl. but yeah, I don't think they'll be able to stay competitive. And just thinking about how everything went to the cloud, it's either private or public cloud. There was a time when there was a threat to have everything on our hard drives, right? There were risks there. Certainly there are risks with security and cybersecurity with things in the cloud, but that's an example of not evolving a business model and sort of embracing the digital transformations that are necessary to continue to be strong and grow.
Absolutely. So building on that question, are there any actions you think companies can take to really make sure they mitigate those threats?
Well, I mentioned the competitive landscape and having the business acumen and the strategic scenario planning. I really think that that's the best way. That and recognizing that the IT department or the technology innovation function of any company, they shouldn't be driving the change. They should definitely be in it with the businesses that they're supporting. And so there's an opportunity, I think, for all of the other organizations to advocate for their needs proactively, right? If they have a vision of what the future looks like, rather than letting IT drive the digital transformation. And companies that do that well have that partnership.
Absolutely. So that was my fun laundry list of questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to add on our topic today?
Yeah, I think, when I reflect on the importance of competencies, because I'm a little bit of a geek on that, I guess, one example that I would want to share is how we used competencies with 360 feedback to prescribe learning solutions. Obviously, it's got the bigger talent impact like we talked about, but for learning and development, people really appreciate when they don't have to take training. And we don't think about what competencies give us back or subtract in terms of training, because if someone already has the knowledge and skills and it's either demonstrated or recognized by their managers, peers, direct reports, then why would we put them through a program? Because we're batching people by program, right? And so it really can subtract if things are modularized such that they only have to develop in areas where they either want to get better and grow, or maybe they're not at the target proficiency level for where they need to be. So
absolutely.
That's a lens that I don't think is shared as often as maybe it could be, which is when it's really done well, when you really systematize it, you are subtracting and you are really respecting the individual and what they know and have done. So, and that's kind of back to the purpose.
Yeah, and I was going to say that links back to what you were saying earlier. If you don't have that starting point or that framework in place, it's going to be quite challenging to go back in time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Kristi. And
thanks for having me.
Viewers, listeners, if you want to reach out to Kristi directly, you can find her on LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone.